Chronic disease is in the news a whole lot. And since the election of President Trump, and of course talking about RFK being his health secretary, and the discussion of chronic disease and how we have to get a handle on it, I'm going to talk about chronic disease today. And America has some of the highest chronic disease rates in the world. And it's strangling us. It's strangling our economy. The amount of money Americans spend on chronic disease. And just a handful of them. America spends a staggering amount on treating chronic diseases. In 2016, the direct health care cost for chronic disease total was $1.1 trillion, equivalent to 5.8% of our GDP. It says when including indirect costs like productivity, the total cost of chronic disease in the United States was $3.7 trillion, or 19.6% of the GDP. As of 2024, 90%, get this now, 90% of the nation's 4.5, it's actually higher than that now, $1 trillion annual health care expenditures are for people with chronic and mental health conditions. The projected number for this coming year, for this past year, is going to be $5.05 trillion, up 5.2% from 2023. It says here by 2050, the annual economic impact of the 7 most common chronic diseases is estimated to potentially reach $6 trillion, just for a handful of diseases. These figures underscore the enormous financial burden chronic diseases place on the American healthcare system and economy, highlighting the urgent need for effective prevention and management strategies. We spend, in 2023, $6.2 trillion is what our government spends a year. $4.5 trillion is spent on healthcare expenditures for people with chronic and mental health conditions. 90% of that $4.5 trillion. It's strangling us economically when so much money is spent on conditions that literally are tied to our lifestyle. Many of them. And I'm not saying you can prevent them, but you can make the conditions a whole lot better if you have them, if you adapt certain lifestyle conditions. Here's some more numbers for you. Get this. We looked at lifespan in general. Life expectancy at birth in the years 1980 to 2021. In 1980, life expectancy in the United States was about 73 years of age. It climbed until about 2019, when it started dropping off dramatically. Now we're down to about 76 years of age. We were up to about 78 and dropping back. Comparing it to the United Kingdom, which continues to go up, they're at 80. Even though you can watch an Austin Powers movie and see people with rotted teeth, it's a joke, by the way, they're still living longer than us. This is according to Dr. Benjamin Bickman. He's a PhD, and he wrote the book, Why We Get Sick. He's also the researcher at BYU who basically, through their research, shows that Alzheimer's disease is tied into insulin resistance of the brain. And this was a story, a review written by Thomas Seeger, PhD, in 2023, about the book, Why We Get Sick. Insulin resistance is the underlying cause of chronic diseases that are shortening American life expectancy. Despite spending more than twice as much per capita on health care, life expectancy in the United States lags that of other industrialized countries, and not by little. For example, a child born in the United Kingdom can now expect to live 4 years longer than a child born in the United States, even though the UK spends less than $5,000 per person on health care. The U.S. spends more than $11,000. What's worse, American life expectancy peaked in 2014 and has fallen off a cliff. Benjamin Bickman, PhD, recently wrote the book, Why We Get Sick. He explains how this has happened. In a foreword by Jason Fung, medical doctor, he explains the problem. In 1900, the top 3 killers were lung infections, pneumonia or flu, tuberculosis, and gastrointestinal infections. Today, if we ask the question, why do we get sick, we get a very different answer. The top 2 causes of death, as well as the top 7 causes, heart disease, cancer, cerebrovascular disease, Alzheimer's disease, and diabetes, are related to chronic metabolic disease. Our understanding of what it means to be sick used to be dominated by infectious disease. Now it's dominated by chronic progressive disorders that have their origins in metabolism. Now here's one for you. We have 39 million diabetics with another 90 million pre-diabetic. And according to Bickman in his book, Why We Get Sick, 88% of our population is insulin resistant. Why we get sick. Diabetes is the most expensive chronic disease. You would think maybe cancer, heart disease. No. Diabetes. Diabetes is indeed the most expensive chronic disease in the United States. The total annual cost of diabetes in the U.S. is estimated at $412.9 billion, including $306.6 billion in direct medical costs and $106.3 billion in indirect cost. The enormous economic burden accounts for $1 in every $4 spent on healthcare in the United States on diabetes. People with diabetes incur annual medical expenditures of $19,736, of which approximately $12,022 is attributed to diabetes. Individuals diagnosed with diabetes have medical expenditures 2.6 times higher than what would be expected without the condition. It says the direct medical cost for diabetes has risen 7% since 2017 and 35% from 2012 when adjusted for inflation. Glucose-lowering medications and diabetes supplies account for 17% of total direct costs attributed to diabetes. It says the indirect cost of diabetes totaling $1.6 billion. Reduced employment due to disability, $28 billion. Reduced productivity at work, $35 billion. In other words, they're not as productive. Lost productivity due to 338,000 premature deaths, $32 billion. These figures underscore the substantial economic impact of diabetes on both the healthcare system and society as a whole, making it the most expensive chronic disease in America. Truly a lifestyle disease. I'm not talking about type 1 now. I'm talking about type 2. We have an epidemic in America, an epidemic of insulin resistance, of diabetes, of pre-diabetes, that is contributing to our healthcare costs in no other way possible except for strangulation. And it's not going to get better until people start to embrace the idea, the understanding it's our lifestyle. It's our diet or lack of one. It's our lack of exercise, the right kind of. It's our processed foods. Just read a package. Go to your grocery store, pick up a box, read it. There's not 3 or 4 different ingredients. There's a list of sometimes 15 to 20 different things. Food colorings, flavorings, things like that. Highly addictive substances added to the food to make you eat the food. Now, what's the purpose of that? Addiction. Addiction for their food, for their product. That drives the cost of healthcare way through the ceiling that you and I are paying for. Let's stop it now. Number here at the studio is 602-260-5394. Now, here's the offer I'm going to make my listeners out there. Lifestyle changes are not as much as taking a pill. Not so simple as that. Or taking a shot like many of these medications offer. It's doing something about it. Because you can't continue to take a pill or take a shot the rest of your life to control you. The only one who benefits from that is Big Pharma and Big Food. Phone number is 602-260-5394, 602-260-KFYI. And again, we're talking about chronic disease and what I feel and many experts in my field of expertise feel is caused from insulin resistance. And according to Dr. Benjamin Bickman, he's from BYU. He wrote the book, Why We Get Sick. Okay, he goes on to say that in the first section of Bickman's book, he describes the association between insulin resistance. That's when your body doesn't handle insulin well and you're overproducing it. It's not it's overproducing it. The association between insulin resistance and the heart, brain, and reproductive health. It shows how insulin resistance promotes cancerous tumor growth, accelerates aging, disrupts kidney function, and causes obesity. In every chapter, Bickman presents convincing evidence summarized by hundreds of scientific studies. He's not the one who made this up. These are studies that he presents. These comments, written in plain language, like the simple facts that they are, downplay the controversy that was biased other popular books on related topics. For example, Peter Attia's more recent Outlive expounds the esoteric details of submeasurements of LDL particles. Bickman's superior, albeit brief, treatment leaves the reader with the impression that we should not bother with LT, which he's right about. Although many readers might find it difficult to believe that practically all major causes of chronic disease have their origins in a singular disorder, Bickman's case is convincing. Insulin is a hormone that shuttles glucose from the bloodstream into human cells, where it can be converted into energy by the mitochondria. That's the cell engine, the furnace, where we burn energy. Thus, every process in the human body is guided or modulated to some extent by insulin. And we talk about this topic all the time. All the time on my show. How it's involved in blood pressure. Of course, you know, if you tell people this stuff, there'd be less need for blood pressure drugs. And how it's involved, you know, in abnormal lipid profile. But if you tell people this stuff, they won't take their statin drug, even when they don't need it. You can't tell people the truth because we don't make money off the truth, do we? And I don't mean me. I mean Big Pharma. I mean Big Food. Go to your grocery store. Go to your grocery store. Who's online now? Is that Greg? Okay, let's go to Greg. Hi, Greg. How are you? Hello, Greg. I think we lost him. Okay. Anyhow, if you can just, he'll call back. I'm sure of that. Okay. All right. Anyhow, you know, insulin resistance is tied to a lot of different factors. Okay. Oh, who's this? Hello. Okay, just disconnect it, please. Okay, thank you very much. Anyhow, if you go by what he's saying, okay, almost every process in the body is guided or modulated to some extent by insulin. By insulin. Okay, and it affects blood pressure. It affects abnormal lipid profile. It affects blood sugar. All of this stuff. All right? And if it gets out of kilter, out of balance, we have sickness. What's that lead to? Chronic disease, chronic sickness that we're dealing with right now. It's almost a centerpiece weekly where your commentators are talking about it. Is he there now? I thought so. Hey, Scott, how are you?
Good, Lance. How you doing?
Topic today, chronic disease, man.
Yeah, it's prevalent. We definitely have the most chronic disease of any country in the world. And like you were just saying, just look to your grocery store, look to your diet, look to your drugs. One of the first things I teach my patients is when their doctor puts them on a medication, ask your doctor when you can get off it. Because you open your medicine cabinet, it's full of medicine. That's not a healthy person.
You got that right. And of course, as they get older, my age group, they start to load us up more and more and more and more on drugs. Okay, and most of our economy is being eaten up by people with 5 or more chronic diseases. Okay, which basically are related to lifestyle. All right, but if they were truthful with them and told them, it's your lifestyle, it's what you're consuming, it's the lack of activity. Okay, it's the lack of natural health care like you provide and like I provide. Okay, they won't go down to the pharmacy and fill up those drugs. Okay, they'll make a lifestyle change and get off those drugs, and they'll be healthier and have a more productive, enjoyable life.
Correct. And it's kind of a misconception that you can't afford to eat healthy, because there are ways to eat healthy. Get organic food. Buy organic fruit and vegetables from Costco and freeze them, or just you can buy food in bulk and freeze it. But if you think about how much you're going to spend on health now versus how much you're going to have to spend on disease and sickness later, what's the trade-off? And the quality of your life, the quality of your years. And that's what the chiropractic profession has been preaching since its conception, is health. And that's what is really missing in this country, because it's a sick care model. We don't get health care. Everybody gets sick care. They go to the doctor when they're sick. Mm-hmm. They take care of their problems when they're sick. They have high blood pressure. Then they take some medications, or they take care of their weight problem when they have a heart attack. Hopefully they're lucky enough to have that heart attack that they can live through. But it's a reactionary society, and we don't take care of our health within our daily routines. Like I like to teach my patients routines and rituals and things, planning, like your workouts, right? If you don't plan your workout, it's not going to get done. If you don't plan time for meditation, you don't plan time for healthcare, it's not going to happen. That's why most of my patients, I like to see them weekly or every other week, because if it's not planned, it's not going to happen. And that's just part of the healthcare routine and taking care of yourself.
Well, they love,
and then you can avoid sickness.
They love chronic disease. I'll give you some numbers here. In 2015, the number of people with 3 or more chronic diseases was 30.8 million. Okay, 2030, the projected number is 83.4 million. 50 million more people in that 15-year period with 3 or more chronic diseases. And presently, if you have 5 or more, it's costing us per person $45,000 per year for that person.
Yeah, how much organic fruits and vegetables and grass-fed meat can you buy for $45,000 a year?
Absolutely.
Instead of on sick care,
Absolutely.
And the cool thing is, Lance, is people can make a switch. They can start making decisions in the grocery store not to buy the Fruit Loops, not to get the artificial colors and sweeteners, and to really make vote with their dollars. And these companies will start to understand, oh wow, they don't care how pretty the food looks, they care how well healthy it is, how well it tastes. You go to other countries, they have warning labels on our food products because it's so dangerous.
We can't sell some of our foods over there. In fact, they're projecting chronic disease in this country between 2016 and 2030 will be $42 trillion. $42 trillion.
Yep.
And that's because they're not being honest with the American population about our diets. Mm-hmm. Okay, and they're letting Big Pharma control that.
Correct. And then, we have regulatory agencies that do deem things safe, quote unquote safe. But that, and it's unfortunate that people, you could teach a whole class on how to read food labels, because some people just, really just don't know how to read a food label and really understand what's in their food and what they're consuming. And then you really got to think about what your food is. Your food becomes you.
Right.
All that food becomes your building blocks for your cells. It becomes a building block for your energy. So food is fuel, food is you, and the food becomes you.
Right.
And if you want to eat processed food, well, you're going to be a processed person.
It's just like this. Let's say my back hurts. Okay, you go to a regular GP, or you go, but to give you a medication, a muscle relaxer. Instead of saying, why don't you go to your chiropractor, go see Dr. Mitchell, okay, and they give you an adjustment and you'd be okay. No, they don't say that.
Yep.
Okay, they say get you on a drug because you become addicted to the drug. You need it every time you have an ache and a pain. Okay.
Well, statistically, if your first encounter was with the medical profession for a lower back issue,
right,
your chance of having surgery is 46%, and then that annually is going to cost you $6,000 at least more, probably $6,000 to $10,000 more. Whereas if your first encounter is with chiropractic care, your chances of 1.7% chance of having a surgery. Where unfortunately, I mean, medical, they're very good with our emergency medicine, is amazing. We have some of these amazing procedures, some of these emergency things, but with chronic disease and illness, you see we're completely failing, and lower back pain and poor nutrition is definitely up there with the issues that they don't address very well, and that's where we excel. We teach our patients the 3 paradigms. You got to live well, you think well, eat well, move well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And health is just not one magic bullet. And like I was saying before, it has to become with routines and rituals, and health just comes from the inside out and just has to be part of your life.
Welcome back to The Good Life with Lance, Dr. Fitness. The phone number at the studio here, if you have a comment or a question, is 602-260-5394. And, we're talking about chronic disease and how much it's costing America in general, society in general, and you as a person in general, even if you don't have a disease. And if you do have one, okay, they keep adding up every time they add another one to it. And when they're projecting between 2016, which was just a few years ago, 2030, which is just a few more years forward, the cost of chronic disease, just chronic disease, at $42 trillion. $42 trillion. That's the size of our economy right now, approximately. $42 trillion. $8,600 per person per year, okay, for medical and productivity loss on chronic disease alone. In 2030, if current trends continue, which means each person will be strangulated. In America, 1.1 million lives could be saved annually through better prevention and treatment of chronic disease. Here's what they're recommending. Simple changes. Behavioral changes. Assuming modest changes in healthy behavior and care delivery. Improve treatment rates, increase physical activity, reduce smoking, reduce obesity. Treatment advances, assuming optimistic changes and new treatment breakthroughs, delay Alzheimer's onset, improve cancer survival. Here we go, tied to Dr. Bickman stuff. When he talks about insulin resistance tied to all these chronic diseases. Better treatment effectiveness, improve care delivery. Total savings. 15 years, $6.3 trillion in savings in America. If improvements, this is by 2030, are made in prevention and treatment. Prevented cases of chronic disease, 169 million. Total cost avoided, $6 trillion. Lives saved, 16 million. Yes! Lifestyle changes. 16 million lives saved. It's called information. We are blessed to live in this time when this information is available to us. It's your opportunity to do something about it. Embrace it. Embrace the truth. Insulin resistance is associated with various chronic conditions. I said these things earlier. Heart disease, brain disorders, reproductive health, cancer, accelerated aging, kidney dysfunction, obesity, with diabetes being the number one expensive disease to treat in America. There are specific foods that worsen insulin resistance. These include processed foods with added sugar, fat, and salt. Sweetened beverages such as soda, fruit juices, and iced tea. Refined carbohydrates, including white bread, wheat bread, low-fiber cereals, white flour-based products like cakes, pastries, and crackers. Foods high in saturated and trans fats, such as fried foods, fast foods, and some animal products. Alcohol, especially when consumed in large quantities. Ultra-processed snacks like chips and cookies and candy. Breakfast cereals, even those labeled as all natural or organic, which can trigger large blood sugar spikes. French fried and other foods, which cause delayed glucose spikes and increased risk of insulin resistance. Oat milk, which has a high glycemic index due to its maltose content. Artificial sweeteners, which can alter gut bacteria composition and impair glycemic response. Ultra-processed food, unhealthy fats from seed oils. Low-fiber foods, additives and preservatives. Nutritional deficiencies. Ultra-processed foods are low in essential nutrients and high in empty calories, which contribute to metabolic disturbances. Disruption in gut microbiome, literally from drinking soda pops that are sweetened with artificial sweeteners and foods that are processed. It says research has shown that higher consumption of ultra-processed foods is associated with an increased risk of type 2 diabetes, the number one expensive disease to treat in America today. Type 2 diabetes. Not type 1, type 2. Because about 90% to 95% of diabetics are type 2. And if they keep hearing about COVID, how this was a pandemic. The biggest epidemic of the 21st century is diabetes and insulin resistance. 88% of Americans are insulin resistant. It means they can't tolerate carbohydrates. All you got to do is look at the waistline. The average male's waist in this country is close to 41 inches. A female's is 39. Yes. Big gut, no butt. Used to be big butt, small gut on ladies. Now it's no butt, big gut. And guys, you've always had big guts. They used to refer to it as beer belly. Not no more. It's carb belly. You're storing that fat between the organs. It's strangling your organs. It's close to your blood supply. What do you think it's doing to your heart and your liver to process all this stuff out? Insulin resistance. We've had an increase in diabetes. Heart disease is not going down, it's going up. And Alzheimer's are worried about that. All tied to the diet. Or lack of one, a good one. The lack of exercise. We look at exercise, the role that it plays. I meet with people all the time. Sometimes I meet with couples. And they're in my age group. Okay, and we talk about how important it is for you to exercise, but the right way. We need cardio exercise, but you don't need to do cardio to get cardio. And we particularly need resistance exercise because as we get older, we lose muscle. It's the muscle that moves the body around. You don't move the body around by sitting in a chair staring at the TV set or a clock. You need to exercise the muscles using resistance. And those muscles enable you. And if you do it in the right way, the exercise should be done in resistance training in a manner that's cardio. In other words, you're not stopping between exercises. You're moving upper to lower body like a pump. That's the PHA system that I've been doing since I've been a kid. The most effective exercise system known to man. And even though you may go to your trainer and they have all kinds of fancy dancy stuff they're trying to do, they're bored. They are literally bored because, I've been in this industry for a long time. They're bored. And working with people in my age group, we are difficult to work with. We have stuff going on. They don't want stuff going on because they have to think through it. It's easier to deal with a younger person who doesn't have stuff going on. You don't have to think so much. Just keep them moving. Which in a lot of cases leads to risky exercise, which can increase your risk of injury. Or worse than that in some cases. So you need to get with the right people when you decide to move forward in exercise and change your diet. I've been eating like this way before keto was even talked about. And I've been discussing this on my radio show since the 1990s. Way before some of the experts in this area on the internet were even born. So you want to get this firsthand from somebody who knows the aging body. That's our people. That's us. And our needs, our necessities to help us feel better and be more productive and enjoy our life as we get older. I enjoy my life. I enjoy spending time with my wife and my kids and my grandkids. I enjoy my life spending with my clients, working with them daily, helping them get healthier. Welcome back to The Good Life with Lance Dreher, Dr. Fitness. We got about 8 minutes here, Jasmine? Okay. Ozempic, the big farmers like drooling when we're making big bucks off of fat people. Oh, we're making so much money off of these people. Let's keep getting them like this and getting them on our drugs. Try to get control of what they can't control themselves, their appetite. Well, there's something out there that's natural that actually will help to do that without the side effects. It's called berberine, Berbelean. Optimized berberine, advanced metabolic support. I was involved in the development of this product with Nootropics Depot. I met with them months ago, said this is my dream, and I've done a lot of reading and research about berberine, okay, and what it can do, but we need to deal with some of the other issues that people have. It's called emotional eating. 75% of people who are overweight are emotional eaters. So we added some special ingredients in the berberine to help with emotional eating. Mm-hmm. Plus, we put some metabolic boosters in there, those that pick up metabolism without stimulating the heart, attitude as well. Making it the most effective, natural weight loss supplement on the market today without the side effects. Berberine. So if you're looking for a powerful blend of natural supplements which supports healthy metabolism and weight management, it's designed for you. It helps to regulate blood sugar, boost your energy, and even your mood. With berberine, you'll feel fuller longer. You may find it easier to stick to your health goals. Don't let age slow you down. Try berberine. That's Berbelean, and rediscover the younger you. You can go to berberine, Berbelean.com. It'll direct you to Nootropics Depot's website, okay, where you can place that product, get yourself under control, get the weight naturally and affordably as well. That's berberine.com. Okay, we're talking about chronic disease in general. Here's another one for you from Dr. Bickman. It says that both type 1 and type 2 diabetes result in elevated blood glucose, but only type 2 is accompanied by hyperinsulinemia, elevated insulin. The double whammy of too much hyperinsulinemia or hyperglycemia, too much blood sugar, causes havoc in the cardiovascular system. The endothelial cells, which line the inside of every blood vessel, are particularly affected. These cells lie between the bloodstream and smooth muscle tissues and control vasoconstriction and vasodilation. It's the endothelial cells that are responsible for signaling the smooth muscles to contract or relax to control blood flow. Does it make sense? Blood pressure here? When endothelial function is disrupted by aberrant blood glucose and insulin levels, they fail to control blood flow. That's why erectile dysfunction can be one of the first signs of insulin resistance in men. And erectile dysfunction depends on proper function of endothelial cells, control the blood flow, that engorges the penis. When the endothelial cells don't work right, nor does the penis. If left undressed, insulin resistance can cause erectile dysfunction, will eventually cause dysfunction in other parts or vital organs of the body by disrupting the proper blood flow and metabolism of the brain, the heart, the kidneys, the liver, and practically every other function on which your body depends. Insulin resistance, chronic disease. So they're in cahoots together. I can tell you that, ladies and gentlemen. Big food, big pharma. That's why they like the fact that overweight in this country is approaching 85%. 85%. We can get more people on GLP-1 drugs to do what? To help them lose weight because it's working with insulin. And when insulin's out of control and blood sugar's all over the board, you're more hungry. But those drugs have side effects, pancreatitis, increased risk of thyroid cancer, and it mess up your gut like there's no tomorrow. The only fix comes in lifestyle change. And the only one who has control over that is you. Nothing comes for free. Nothing comes for free. There's a cost to lifestyle change. But the cost is a whole lot cheaper than if you didn't make the change, because not only will you have a life that's not enjoyable if you don't make these changes, you'll be constantly tied down with doctor's visits and more medications. When I said here earlier, $45,000 if you have 5 or more chronic diseases, $45,000 a year. And if you're making decent money from Social Security, and a lot of people out there are getting Social Security now, I'm one of them. $45,000 would be not too bad from Social Security per year. But if it's being spent on taking care of yourself because you have 5 or more chronic conditions, that's sad. All that money that you put away by working your butts off all your life is being used and being put right back in Big Pharma's pocket. Taken away from you. Don't let this happen.